Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to another episode Hog Talk Podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Roastery Studios, part of the Believe and Buzz Radio Network, where you can hear us on 106.7 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I am Porter Hayes, and alongside me, as always, is Adam Hall. We're also brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to the online casino and get on a game of blackjack, poker, or even unwind with our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and get in on the action. Use promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, the game starts here. We're going to start the show right off via Metters Lumber Hotline. Bring in Zachary Hall, Storm Chaser. Been on the show before. Appreciate you having time to come on. During this sweltering dog days of summer, we honestly been blessed this summer, so we can't complain too much about the heat overall. But my AC went out yesterday, so last night was brutal. And right now, upstairs inside the Sterling Studios, it's a brisk 92 degrees. So bear with me if I have to pause and wipe a little sweat away.
Oh my lord, that is horrible, man. I feel bad for you. Yeah, it's hot. I feel like it's been an overall not too bad summer, but the last few days have been rough. And then, of course, we had some days in July and June that were nasty, but we're on the downhill trend, towards fall. So
Yeah,
it'll be a while, but at least we're in that direction instead of going uphill.
Football's coming,
Yeah.
So, but before we get into the hog stuff, and we'll later talk about something you got going on, partnering up with, had a chance to go watch the new Twisters movie, and I know you were really hyped up about it. A lot of meteorologists, storm chasers, and I loved the fact that they said that people from Arkansas were a bunch of hillbillies with a YouTube channel. So, one, did you take offense to that? And two, your overall thoughts on the movie?
I had so many people send me that clip. Everybody got a kick out of that. Oh, it doesn't offend me any. I think the director's from Arkansas, from Lincoln, so maybe a little homish is his home state, but I thought the movie was great. I thought that segment was funny. I wear my shoes. I promise. I'm not a hillbilly, but now don't get me wrong. I'm from Hackett, Arkansas, so I'm not. So
well, hold on. Let me move my head over a little bit. See, I actually sent this to one of your buddies. I said, well, there is actually hillbillies in Arkansas.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But no, I enjoyed the movie. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job. I really appreciate that a lot of the meteorology in the movie was correct. There was some stuff in there that I kind of rolled my eyes at, but it's Hollywood. Me and my wife went and saw it late night showing, 10 p.m. in Fort Smith. Haven't done that in a long time. And we had a good time. I thought it was a great movie, fun, good cast. So
I did want to ask you with what you do and you nailed it, kind of the fact that they took the time to really get it right. What does that say about your profession and actually looked at as, okay, respectful? People count on y'all. Look, I know how news is these days and the regular news, but what the likes of you and Garrett Lewis and people are doing now online, storm tracking, weather. I mean, how did that make you feel that, look, they actually got it right instead of just, hey, we're going to make this a cinema type show?
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting because I feel like they captured all of the population centers of the storm chasing world. They captured the guys. The main character was kind of a goofball, wild and crazy, but he knew his stuff. That's very common in the storm chasing world. There's some guys who are pretty outlandish and have big personalities, but that doesn't mean that they don't know their stuff. And then you have the research groups that you saw in the movie. That's a thing in real life. There's people who legitimately go out and do scientific research, which is very important, in my opinion. And then you have the rest, there's some amateurs as well who go out who may not know what they're doing, but they're just having a good time, which is pretty dangerous, but to each their own. But I feel like they did a good job of capturing the entire, the aura of storm chasing. I feel like it's more popular now than it's ever been because of social media. When I started, it was becoming popular, but it was nothing like it is now, man. People have really latched on to the idea of being able to travel and look for tornadoes, and I love what I do. I feel like I do way more Arkansas weather forecasting nowadays than any tornado chasing, but still love my roots of storm chasing and try to go whenever I can. So
looking into, I guess we'll switch gears to football. Compared last year to this year, What is, we'll say, like a position group that you're looking at that you hope is better than the year before?
Offensive line. I don't think anything. I have zero doubts that I'm not the only one who thinks that, and that we need to improve on the offensive line. Last year was an atrocity when it came to protecting our quarterback and establishing any sort of run game. Um, I like some of the transfers that we've added. Carmona, I think is his name.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's going to be a good addition. Keyshawn Blackstock, I feel like is a great addition. I heard that they moved Patrick Kudus to left guard. I feel like maybe getting him off the outside will help. It seems like he may be a better fit for a guard position. Hopefully, I played left tackle in high school, so the offensive line is really that's kind of a special interest for me in general. And last year was rough. Hopefully, we're better there. So
I've heard from some that fall, and I was talking about this last week, that they could compete for one of the top 4 offensive lines in the SEC. They feel that confident with Carmona, what
Good.
they have going back. That's yet to be seen, but I mean, there's hope there, and you nailed it. I've said it. Look, it doesn't matter if you have Belichick and Brady behind. If you can't block, you're not going to do anything. And especially when you have the tight ends, you have the running back room, you have along with wide receivers, that's key. And your offense is not. And we're talking about losing, 5 games by 7 points or less, and then the red zone debacles against LSU. You have an offensive line that can block. Maybe you win 2 of those games, 3 of those games. So that's where my hopes lie. I'm on the other kind of a little bit other end of Adam on prediction wise, but it's my hopes is based on if they can produce an offensive line. We have a lot of talent, and I know it's funny that it's fake, but when you play the NCAA football game, but you see the talent.
Yeah.
You're, oh my gosh, we got these running backs and these wide receivers and these tight ends and the quarterback. You're like, okay, if they can play up to their potential, block, and stay healthy, this could easily be a 7-win team.
Yeah. I mean, if the offensive line is improved, I feel like Bobby Petrino, even if they're not necessarily leaps and bounds better than last year, even if they're just a little bit better, I feel like Bobby will be able to scheme around that, especially having Taylor Green. I like Jaquindon Jackson. I think he's a good asset in the backfield. Apparently, they're really high on Braylon Russell. And, we know what R-Dub can do. And last year, we saw flashes. Andrew Armstrong, super reliable. Luke Hawes might be one of the best tight ends in the country. Like, we have the pieces. You just have to have – that's what I think I get so fired up about is, like, there's always that missing piece. Last year, our offensive line just couldn't get it done. Like, we've got to be able to get it done against these teams that have good defensive lines and that elite talent on the edge. And I'm hoping that we have that this year enough to get us off the ball.
If you're looking at the schedule, is there any game in particular, SEC or non-conference, that you think is a game that could sway the rest of the season either way?
Week 2 at Oklahoma State.
That's, I think, the general consensus.
I mean, guys, we're week 1. I'm excited to watch 2 in-state schools go at it. I think the Hogs will be okay there, I hope. All due respect to UAPB, but I think there's a huge difference there. I'm excited to see the Hogs play later this month. But week 2, we go to Stillwater, and if we go down there and get our butts kicked, I'm sorry, but it's going to be real hard as an SEC school to be taken seriously if you go to Stillwater and get your butt handed to you at Oklahoma State. And then you're expected, the week after, who do we play? UAB, I think it's week 3.
Mm-hmm.
You should win that game, but then right after that, we kick into SEC play. And there's going to be teams out there who get upset the first few weeks. And I'm not saying Oklahoma State beating us is an upset. Please don't. Yeah. What I'm saying, though, is that I feel like us getting blown out by them would be an upset. We have no business being blown out by Oklahoma State. We need to go compete and win, and then hopefully win week 3.
And we've made this point about the schedule and where I've taken the Oklahoma State loss, but you get to bounce back. Last year, when you played BYU, you didn't have that chance to bounce back. You took that loss on the chin and then had to go in that 6-game stretch or 5-game stretch. Yeah. I think that could be a difference in you might lose the game, but you're going to find out about your team week 2. And even if you lose it and stay competitive, you get to fix those corrections and make those corrections the following week to prepare yourself, opposed to get hit in the mouth and then you're getting hit again and again and again and again. And then you find yourself losing that game to Mississippi State, a team that you should beat 7-3. And it's almost like at that point, you just kind of seen what happened with Auburn in the Missouri game. So I'm not saying that I want Arkansas to lose or I think they're going to lose. I just think if you go into that game and lose, there is hope, because that you do have that game following next week against UAB to kind of bounce back and regather yourself.
Yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
No, you're good. I was just going to follow it up with, this is hypothetical here, but you're watching a game and there's a storm coming in.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to do two at the same time? Or how are you going to handle that situation if you got a close Arkansas game, fourth quarter, but you've got a tornado brewing out to the west? What's going on?
Well, so I cover, to the best of my ability, all 75 counties in our state, and work comes first. So if there is if there's a game going on, I've got to do my best to make sure that people are aware on social media, because that's my platform is social media. I've got to make sure that people are under the impression that there could be severe weather where they live. So I have to take that seriously. So yeah, definitely got to focus on the work part first. I think people would be pretty upset with me if I just ignored the state and didn't do anything about the tornado warnings or anything like that. Hopefully we don't have anything like that this fall, and we can just enjoy football weather. But Arkansas likes to pull some punches. You never know. So,
well, kind of piggybacking off that, has there ever been a time where you're anticipating this game event and you can't wait to watch it, and then all of a sudden there's a storm break, or you get some news that potential bad weather could be coming that kind of takes you out of the game plan?
Definitely more, I feel like, in basketball than anything, especially in March, like late February and early March, when March Madness was going on, when Musselman was here. The game that Debo had, like, the winning shot. Who did we play? The team out of Tulsa. What's their name?
ORU.
Or Roberts.
Or Roberts. Yep. While that game was going on, we had tornado warnings in Southeast Arkansas with tornadoes on the ground. And I was like trying to keep up with the game, make sure I saw the score. But then I was like live on Facebook because I'd stayed home. I had some obligations that kept me home. I wasn't in my car out tracking, but covering that, live, and it happens sometimes. But football, I feel like a lot of times we avoid it, but basketball sometimes, in March. So, and baseball is.
Go ahead.
Well, baseball is in the middle of spring, so.
Moving into the three sports, I kind of put this filler out there, and I think people kind of took it the wrong way because they thought I was mentioning all sports. And, of course, track, national championship, SEC championship stuff. But just when it pertains to the big three, your football, basketball, baseball, do you think this is the year of the redemption? Like, okay, we really need to redeem ourselves, bounce back. And, yeah, I've said it all summer long, football's on the clock because it starts with them. But do you think there is added pressure on all three programs to do well just because of what's been going on the last couple of years?
Yeah, sure. I think the fan base is getting a little restless. I'm guilty of it as well. I'm a super passionate Razorback fan. I'm a diehard, but I can't help but be a little annoyed after the last year. It's been tough, man, especially with basketball. Everyone had high expectations for basketball, and then baseball fell flat. I do feel like when it comes to football this season, there's a lot of low expectations. So we're opening ourselves to be surprised. And if we are surprised, I feel like a lot of people will be happy. Basketball, there's a lot of high expectations. You got Calipari in here. We know what that man can do. It's year one. I don't expect him to win a national championship, but I would love to see us compete at a high level. And then rolling into baseball season, Dave Van Horn, I feel like, always has a loaded roster. That's never a problem. We just have to win. Like, we have to win when it counts. And I feel like the bats always go cold late in the season. So maybe this year we can dial in all three of those things and compete at a high level in all three sports. Football's first, and I think all of us are eager for that because I feel like that's something that, man, last year was rough. It was hard.
Yeah.
So that was not fun.
Speaking of Calipari, do you intend on buying several bags of the Razorback chicken nuggets?
My kids love Dino Nuggets, so we'll definitely be purchasing the Razorback Nuggets. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool that they did that, man. It's a good sign that we're in a good spot there.
I think it's genius. It's a genius idea. Strike while the iron's hot, because look, this time next year, if things I mean, go south. I'm not saying they will, but they're going to just be taking those off the shelves and burning them,
Yeah.
opposed to now it's the popular thing to do. But just with all the attention, and I want to kind of throw Bobby Petrino in there because we're talking about the expectations, but that has to add some of that to the fan side of it, that hope, the hope factor of they hope that he's going to come in and just fix everything. I think that's the biggest thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just
Nope.
think with the big consensus with the fans is, all right, we got Bobby back. He's just going to fix everything. And he might, because we see what happened, but you've seen when he was hired, what they did. They flew a plane over Bud Walton. Everybody was welcoming him ahead of the Duke game, and everybody forgot about the Duke game going on, or was it Purdue
I was there.
Game or Purdue game?
I was at the Duke game.
Duke game.
He
Okay.
was there. Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of in Arkansas fans, because there's not much success as the program as a whole. You have to go back and put your nostalgia hat on, and he's part of that. Think about the 94, the 64 Bobby Petrino era. So you're holding on to that, hoping that he comes in to fix things. And I hope he does too, because look, I want to see this thing. I want to see 70,000 in every game this year.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Yeah. Bobby was, whenever I was in high school, Bobby was our coach. So I went through high school, all my friends experiencing that Razorback era, and it was so much fun. And it spoiled me as a younger kid. And then, of course, I had to endure the Chad Morris era and all that, and Bielema era. So, it's kind of hard not to have a little bit of a tickle with the nostalgia when Petrino was here the first time. And we all know what he can do on the offensive side compared to what has provided us last year. I mean, it was a disaster. So hopefully we improve in a big way on offense. I think we will too.
So looking at this season, and like I said before the show, I've asked different guests, do you have any record predictions for the year? And it doesn't have to be a final answer.
Yeah, and I think 5-7 is a really realistic prediction. I mean, I know some people might not want to hear that, but until we see the proof in the pudding of our offensive line being better, how are you? For me, and not only the offensive line too, we also lost a lot of our linebacking core. I know that we got Sorey from Georgia, who's really talented, and they really like Carson Dean, and they like Brad Spence, and I feel like we did well in retaining some of our secondary. Landon Jackson came back, so that makes me happy knowing that. I mean, that dude's an all SEC kind of guy, but I still want to see the work being put in and the wins come on the board before I start saying, we're gonna win 7, 8, 9 games. And I'm not saying we can't. I think we can. Our schedule's pretty favorable. Wouldn't you guys agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no Alabama, there ain't no Georgia. We get LSU at home. Texas is at home. I mean, what more do you want? I know we got to go play Auburn. That's tough. That'll be a tough one to win, especially with how hot they are right now. But man, I just feel like we have the odds are in front of us to do well, but I want to see them do it. And I'm going to stick with the 5-7 for now. And I know some people, like I said earlier, might not like that, but that's how I feel about it right now.
Yeah. LSU not having the mobile quarterback, the Heisman quarterback, you look at Mississippi State still rebuilding, coaching changes, everything that's going on. But I wanted to ask you, I totally forgot this while we're talking about the storm track and stuff, but with Texas and OU coming into the SEC, now look, that's your working territory. So I'm sure that you run into a lot of OU Texas fans how has the chatter changed now with both of them coming into the league, or has it always just been brutal?
Well, I'm definitely friends with a lot more OU people. I have a lot of friends from the Met program there in Norman. And I mean, let's be honest, guys, Oklahoma's tornado country, as tornado country gets. So definitely friends with a lot of OU guys who are excited for the challenge. They're excited to watch their team compete. I love them to death. I lived in Oklahoma for a while when I was young. So I know a lot of Oklahoma fans, and they're excited, it seems like. And there's obviously some friendly banter there. As far as the Texas fans go, I don't have a ton of friends who are Longhorn fans. I've got a couple, and I've actually talked to them about it. And, they're excited. I mean, Texas is going to compete. I mean, they went to Alabama last year and won. They went to the college football playoffs. I mean, they're going to be fine. They're going to compete. OU is a good program. They're going to compete as well. I don't think that either of them are going to run the SEC. I'm not under that assumption. I don't think a lot of people are, but they're going to be tough. Texas will be. I mean, this year, like I said, we got to play Texas at home, and they're going to be ready to play us. We whipped them last time they were here, so that should be a lot of fun late in the season too. I think.
Mhm.
So
Looking back, and this is kind of him bringing back at the storm tracking stuff. I'll bring back the movie. If you were going to be in the next Twisters movie,
yeah.
starring Zachary Hall, who is your cast around you? Who's
Oh my
chasing with
gosh.
you?
I have a really good friend. His name's Frankie Shepard. He lives in Northwest Arkansas. We've chased a lot of tornadoes together, and he is hilarious. Like outside of the working world, he is one of the funniest guys I know. I would love to have him beside me. I'm lucky to know a guy named Reed Timmer, who's very
Mhm.
popular in the
Oh,
storm
yeah.
chasing world.
Dominator.
I feel like Reed would be the ultimate, not a villain, but I feel like he would be the ultimate alter ego in the movie of like the Jonas Millers of the old days, and like how he's such a, like a prominent figure in the weather world, not just storm chasing. I mean, he's known by millions of people. I got to sneak my wife in there somehow. She's gorgeous. Get her in there somewhere with me, and I don't know, maybe some family members too. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question. But there's
Oh
a
yeah,
few in
I'm
there
just
that I like to have.
curious. You
So
know,
yeah.
Oh, Reed Timmer, man, he started. I mean, I remember back when that he made. I guess you could say he made it cool or commercialized it. I would say, with the Dominator and the DeLorean looks like a Tesla. I mean, Tesla probably built their truck off of his model, but just being how animated he got and really got into the storm, you see a
Yeah.
little bit of the tornado wrangler in him, just how
Oh,
he
that definitely.
being inside those tornadoes. So yeah, that definitely props to him and all that. But I really want to talk about and finish up the segment with you teamed up with Garrett Lewis, started a nonprofit. Really
Yeah.
excited to see how this takes form. But I know, with the recent tornadoes and the damage in Northwest Arkansas really helped y'all kind of kick this thing off. But just talk about the name, how it got started, and your goal as building this network that y'all are building.
Well, myself and meteorologist Garrett Lewis, who I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with in this area. I know we all across the state, but he's very prominent here in Northwest Arkansas, the River Valley. He was on TV news for like around 20 years. Um, we started a nonprofit called Arkansas Storm Recovery, and myself and Garrett are both. I'm the president. He's like the director, organizer. So we kind of work in tandem together and use our following to try to spread awareness on times that we need help to help people. Obviously, the tornadoes that happened in northern Arkansas back in May were really detrimental to parts of our state. We had people lose their life and a lot of property that was lost. So we decided to form a nonprofit that we could activate in these times to help people, whether it's help people find shelter, get clothes. This Saturday, this weekend, we're holding an event in Rogers called Rogers Rail Yard Ride for Kids, where people can come ride the full rail yard deal in Rogers, and all the proceeds will go to getting school supplies for Rogers students who are impacted. We have a shirt link, a website that has like NWA strong shirts and stuff for Rogers kids. And I mean, that's just a few examples of what we're going to do in the future. Obviously, we're not just covering Northwest Arkansas, it's Arkansas storm recovery, not just Northwest Arkansas. We're going to try our best, all 75 counties. If we have a weather disaster, we're going to do our best to try to activate and help, especially after we have inclement weather. And that happens here in our state, unfortunately. So we have big goals. We feel like the future is bright with it. It's still super young. We're working out the kinks, but I'm really happy that me and Garrett were able to come together and join forces. He has a large following. I'm blessed with a large following as well. So we're trying to get the awareness out as much as possible so people know it's available. But we have some other wonderful resources in our state too, outside of Arkansas Storm Recovery. I feel like Arkansas as a whole does a good job of helping people in their time of need, and we just want to kind of supplement that and do even more. So thank you for asking me and letting me plug that here.
Oh
It's
yeah,
super
definitely.
important.
Anything we can do to help. I mean, that's what I mean. I've really this year. I mean, we've talked about it off air about just there's so many people in Arkansas who do content creating and they do a very good job, whether it's traveling, weather, sports, and
Mhm.
I want to promote all of it and do what we can
Yeah.
to really link up and share all of it. But I do have a favor, and I had an idea while we were talking about this was, if you're doing any kind of fundraiser, and you remember the charts where it has the numbers, the 10 to 15,000, 20,000, when your goal, you got to do a sleeve. And the more money you get, the higher the sleeve rolls up. And I
Oh
think
my gosh.
that would be a
Yeah.
cool idea when you're talking about Garrett and your fundraisers. Because look,
Yeah.
you're talking about everybody who knows weather in the state of Arkansas knows that the higher his sleeves were rolled up, the more intense the weather was. So I think if you put his sleeve on one of those charts, the more money you get, the higher his sleeve goes up. Just a thought. You don't have to implement it, but I think that's a pretty
Yeah.
cool little idea to do.
I've gotten to know him really well the last year or two, and I've come to find out that when he is in any situation where it's a little stressful or he gets a little nervous, that dude sweats like crazy, and he just rolls them things up real quick. It cracks me up, man, that he does that. But yeah, I like the idea, man. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, Zachary, we'll get you out here on that, man. I really appreciate you coming on again. Love talking hogs with you. Weather, of course. And, anytime you want to hop on, definitely come on and talk some hogs with us. And hopefully the next time we come on, we're talking about positive Razorback programs instead of a 4-8 football team.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope we have a good season. I appreciate y'all having me on. So
yes, sir.
Appreciate
it.
Go Hogs. See you guys.
That was Zachary Hall, Storm Tracker. Again, we'll be sharing all of the stuff he's got going on with that nonprofit and everything. Great cause, and couldn't have two better people that do that with the following and just them being local Arkansas guys. And plus, you were talking about Fort Smith and Hackett, right down your neck of the woods too. So me being from Ozark, I'm a little bit east, but I love the fact that people use their platform to give back. And I think that's the most important thing, that they're following their passion, going in after a storm to help people out and being able to do it mobile. I mean, their response time could be even quicker being the storm tracker and the weather that they track.
And hopefully, the day will happen that I run into him at a Jam Mart when he's picking up his donuts on his way somewhere.
There you go.
So that's what I'm waiting on.
I actually met Garrett one time at a restaurant, and it's weird. You hear him on TV and then you see them in person and they sound exactly like it. That throws you off, because you're like, okay, it's not coming through a TV, and you hear him in person. It tripped me up hearing him talk exactly like he does on TV.
And the first time that I had ever ran into him, I was a manager at Bed Bath & Beyond, and he had walked in, and I'm 6'2" as it is, and I wasn't prepared for him to be taller than me. I don't know why, but you just don't expect it, and it caught me off guard, threw me off. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. After the break, we're going to kick off our partnership with Baptist Health, where we're bringing on local doctors to talk about just sports-related injuries, heat illness, how to prepare for really dog days of summer, anything that goes into sports and health and wellness, and a lot of the changes we've seen over the last 10, 20 years with just, the equipment, hydration, no more 2 days, turf fields, all that we're going to really try to cover over the next month with the different providers that we have on. And we'll come back to you with Dr. Lee Johnson after the break.
Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and the supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck, plus our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today, and let's build something amazing together. Are you in need of legal representation? Look no further than the law offices Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson. As the oldest law firm in the River Valley, we have been serving our clients for over 100 years, with locations in Ozark, Fort Smith, and Springfield. Our experienced team of attorneys provide expert guidance and advocacy in a wide range of legal areas, including personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and more. Trust in our history and experience to the results you deserve. Contact the law office of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson today at 479-782-8813. That's 479-782-8813. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company.
And I want to welcome you back to the Hog Talk podcast. And we go back to the Meadows Lumber Hotline, bring in Dr. Lee Johnson from Baptist Health, ER physician, former team doctor for the Greenwood Bulldogs. Appreciate you coming on. I'm really excited about this partnership we have with Baptist Health to really give our listeners, our fans who are parents, players, athletes, some kind of tips, tricks, things to be looking forward to with, football kicking off and kids going back to a full football schedule. What things they can be looking forward to prevent injuries if they are injured, how they can rehab, everything. So really appreciate you coming on with us.
Man, I'm really happy to be on. Thanks for having me. It's a great opportunity to get to visit with y'all. Appreciate you giving me a chance to talk.
Yeah. And going back to the team doctor, you were a team doctor for Greenwood for 10 years. So look, being a part of a successful program, being around athletes is no stranger to you. So just really talk about, the aspect of being a team doctor, really behind the scenes on the sidelines, what goes into your operations on a typical Friday night or Thursday night?
Friday night, man, Thursday night, depending on when you're there. The important thing is knowing the kids. For me, I had two boys growing up in Greenwood. We're both involved in the football program. And so, knowing which kids, there's some kids, that are never going to come to you, man. They're just wired that way. They're never going to let you know they're hurt. There are other kids that are going to come see you almost every practice, just get some reassurance, make sure they're doing okay. So an important part of what we do is knowing the kids. We lean a lot at Greenwood, especially on our athletic trainers. We have a lot of well-trained athletic trainers in our state, and we're fortunate to have a state that really supports athletic trainers. Those are the guys that are there with the kids every day. And so having a great working relationship with them is also real important to kind of understanding in the moment what's going on and how to help the kids.
And, you've had the chance to really be on the sidelines with some athletes, D1 athletes that are going to the next level. How, when it comes to not only, of course, safety's first, protecting that kid, but also really preventing them from those injuries, like you said, coming to you or not coming to you, knowing that there's life after high school football. How do you treat that differently, knowing, look, this isn't a kid that's going to go work after high school. You're going to the next level. So you've got to prevent those injuries and yet keep them as a competitor.
The players always want to compete. We've had Drew Morgan, Grant Morgan, Tyler Wilson, had some really great players come through that have had an opportunity to go on and play for the Razorbacks. And all of our kids, not just those kids, man, they want to be on the field all the time. But you especially want to keep an eye out for them and have candid conversations with the parents. It's important to engage the parents in the process, let them know, hey, this is about more than one game. There's going to be a next week. There's not just going to be a next week. There's going to be a next year. And certainly for a lot of our kids, that opportunity is out there. But you want to protect every kid, right? Whether they've got a D1 or D3 or done. You want every kid to have a healthy outcome. And so you want to keep an eye out for all the kids, regardless of their, competitive nature. But certainly for some of these kids in our situation, there's definitely this opportunity to go and have a great career after high school. So you want to be thoughtful of that as well. Just kind of thinking about the big picture, how you approach an injury in August is maybe a little different sometimes than how you approach it in late November, early December, what you're willing to let rest or maybe let go out and play. Those kind of things enter in sometimes to the thought process.
bringing up being, August 1st, what are some of the, I guess, bigger injuries or bigger issues that you see or have seen from players coming into, getting ready for the upcoming season after being off for the summer?
Yeah, the biggest thing, right now in Arkansas is the heat, right? I mean, you think back to the days. I mean, I grew up in Arkansas. I think y'all guys did too. I can remember, back in the day, we weren't allowed to take off our helmets. You had an old hot green water hose with a couple of holes poked in it, right? You go over there and get you a little drink of water, maybe once a practice. And we've just learned so much more about heat-related illness and the importance of taking care of our kids and all of our athletes really in these hot days. And so the approach we have now is so much different than it was then, and so much better. We have some guidelines in place that the Arkansas Activities Association put out around temperature and when it's safe to play, and when just taking that decision out of the coach's hands. And I think all of our athletic trainers and coaches are educated on heat-related illness now. We've passed some good legislation in Arkansas to support that training. So every school in Arkansas has to have an emergency plan for heat-related illness. They have to have cooling tanks ready to cool these kids off if they get in trouble. That we're just a lot better equipped and educated around that. We look now not just at the temperature, but at this wet globe temperature. If you've heard that term, this is we're going to take a towel and put it over the thermometer, and we're going to get a feeling of not just how hot it is or the heat index, but how does the heat affect the body, and watch that temperature close. And if it's in a certain range, we don't let the kids play at all. And if it's in a different range, we can let them play for an hour, but they can't play with pads on. And so those are all sorts of things and precautions that are important to take this time of year, when it's hitting 100 degrees in August.
Yeah, I know, I want to touch on something further in the next question, but, look, there's been some 7th grade games they've just canceled. 5:30, you see a lot more turf fields. That adds a lot to it. But what I wanted to get into was just the, kids these days. And I know when you say that, you age yourself by 20 years, but, there's a lot of social media in their hands. There's a lot of, like my kids, they go for practice hour and a half, and then they come home and they sit inside for the majority of the day. It's not like you're outside mowing, you're doing a lot. How have you seen that affect how the heat affects these kids, and even the ones that you've got to monitor just standing there in a practice that's not used to being in the heat? How much harder has that made y'all's job, just having to really keep an eye on those things?
Certainly it's different, right? So how you develop a defense against heat in your body is through the sweat glands. How hard can you sweat? How much evaporative heat can you absorb so that you're cooling your body off through these evaporative mechanisms? And that a lot of that gets determined in your youth, right? As you're developing and developing sweat glands. So the more heat exposure you have in your youth, the better accommodated you are as you get older. And certainly, the air conditioning environment has changed that some. I think most of these kids that grow up in the South in the heat get enough exposure through, practices and other outdoor activities. Most of the kids that we have playing football these days have started pretty young. I think where you see a little bit different issues when you have kids move in from out of state, kids that maybe grew up in a cooler environment, and then they show up here and aren't used to the heat, aren't as well equipped literally to sort of accommodate to the temperature changes that we have. So those are all things that you want to consider kind of when you're looking into it.
And also, look, every school loves having that glamorous turf field. It looks nice, but how have you even seen that? Because look, I've played softball on a turf field, and just standing there, your feet, I mean, they're burning. I've never had my feet like really burn the way that turf coming off, the heat coming off the turf. How have you really seen that effect when you're looking at these heat related illnesses?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the turf is hotter. I think the thing that's balanced that is just the awareness, right? I mean, we do such a better job at thinking about it, and there's been tragedies that we've seen over the years. And I think that's brought everybody's level of awareness. You talk about social media, people are aware, people know about heat related illness down the way they didn't. So even though I think the fields on these turf fields are maybe a little hotter, we've done enough to prepare to kind of be ready. I mean, like think back in the day, would they have ever called off football practice for 100-degree weather? No, never, right? Never. Would they have ever said, hey, dude, you don't have to wear your helmet. It's too hot outside. Would they have had preparation and practiced these emergency situations? So even though I think I think you make a good point, but I think we've done enough preparation that, it's just safer. I mean, the environment's safer. You talk about concussions and the sort of the awareness around concussions, right? I mean, one of the toughest things on the sidelines at one point was sort of trying to decide who has a concussion, who doesn't have a concussion. And then you see something like what happened with Tua getting hit and coming out and going down. I mean, it changed the whole approach at the NFL level to say, hey, look, at this point, if you see a kid get hit and they just look like they got knocked, you got to pull the kid, right? And so my job, at the end of my tenure, experience was a lot different than the beginning because it was a lot easier decision. You talk about early on trying to evaluate the kid, trying to take the kids. Now try to talk to maybe even the coaches. Now everybody's tuned in. All the coaches know, hey, listen, if that kid gets hit, we're going to take him out. It's not worth the risk. We're going to set him down. And so the awareness that we have, I think, as a public watching sports, viewing sports, has really created a lot safer environment. Certainly in football, but really kind of across the board,
Is there anything, say, starting, it could be high school, it could be college, it could be professional, that they haven't changed or prepared for that you think leagues should look at when it comes to sports injuries?
That's a great question. So a couple of things come to mind. I mean, you see these guardian caps that these players are wearing in practices. Even some of the high school players are wearing them now for some of the practices. I think at some point we have to start looking at the equipment, right? I mean, why are we playing with the same equipment? If these guardian caps really make a difference, if they reduce, concussion by 33%, this is something that we have to consider because we don't know long-term, CTE, is this 100 hits? Is it 200 hits? We got kids starting football in third grade. So I think at some point we've got to think about, even if it looks goofy, right? Is this the right thing to do for the players? I think, looking at the rules, there's been a lot of rule changes in the NFL around kickoffs. Kickoffs is the part of the game that makes me cringe on the sidelines. I'm watching the kickoff and I'm always nervous because it's just such a high speed, high velocity, high impact sort of event. And so I'm always watching the field at that time, just expecting at any time some kid to get. And I think at some point you have to see some of these rule changes you're seeing in the pros trickle down into even the high school level, right? What are we really doing with the kickoff? If they're changing the rules around this in the pros, do we need to think about changing the rules at a high school level? Those are some of the things that I think, could be addressed. Again, a lot safer environment now than it's ever been. But if you're looking for ways to maybe improve the situation, another thing that's important are these AEDs. If you saw what happened to DeMar Hamlin, with the Bills a couple of years ago, we passed a law here in Arkansas this last session to require high school sporting events there to be an AED at the event. So we had them at the high schools. We had them in the schools. Now we're just saying, hey, look, it's not doing you any good in the hall of the school. Let's bring that thing to the sideline. Let's take it to the gym. Because if you're going to have an event where you can save a kid's life, it's going to be one of these cardiac arrhythmias where the kid drops and you put the AED on him and you can save a life that way. So I think more awareness around that too, having that equipment available is important.
Yeah, and I've said, for the longest time, you can make all the rules you want and change these things, but to me, it seems like they're making more rules, but the equipment's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And there's a lot of focus on the kids faster and stronger, and kids are bigger, faster, and stronger earlier. And you talk about the kickoff, but every time a quarterback drops back or somebody, and it looks like they're wearing those old shirts from Dillard's, with the little shoulder pads in them. There's nothing in them. So I wish that everybody makes fun of them. I wish they would bring the cowboy collar back because you're talking about whiplash and how that could prevent things and everything that goes into that. That's been my biggest argument. And in the kickoff, it's like they're wanting to make changes to the onside kick, which is amazing because there's your high impact, but punt returns because there's more higher impact from one side you have a guy running at you full speed and you're standing still. kickoff return on opening kickoff, everybody's running the same speed, but those impacts like the blindside blocks, those quality rule changes. But to me, until they really start changing the equipment to where those are safer, I mean, that's where I really want to see those kind of changes being made in the legislation about making it more comfortable, but yet safer at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's important. You look at these NFL players with their thigh pads, and it's like a little postage stamp on their thigh. I mean, it's not doing anyone any good. And why are you even going through the motions of wearing a pad there if you're not going to protect something? So you're right. I think there's a lot of opportunity there to sort of look at how the equipment is, and is there room to improve it? I think certainly there's cases for that.
A lot of times there's not even knee pads. It's just the pants are above the knees now, and you're talking about twisting and turning and look, the game's opened up more. It's more of a passing game. There's more risk now for, instead of just smash mouth football, you're running up the middle, maybe do a little sweep. There's a lot more margin for error when it comes to injuries, and you're running out there with nothing on and get hit by a helmet in your knee. I mean, that could devastate. And even if you are going to the next level, you're going to a career. I mean, that could change your whole life to get your just knee absolutely blown out.
Yeah. I think how we train these kids is better now too, though. When you look at these kids you talked about, I mean, they are just, bigger, stronger kids. Every time when I would do physicals at Greenwood, I would do the physicals and think, we're not going to lose a game, man. These kids are huge. Where were these guys when I was playing, I think that extra training does provide some extra protection, from some of these injuries. But at the same time, the collision speed, if you haven't been on the sideline of a high school, pro, college game to watch the level of intensity of the collisions, it'll change your thoughts to some degree about how the sport's played and what it looks like, because it's a violent sport, no doubt. A lot of positive things. Love the sport, but there's also it's a sport that you got to take precautions in, for sure.
And going to that, we're talking about education, and with social media, with you being able to, you can get to knowledge quicker, but you can educate a head coach or a team, because a lot of these smaller schools, they don't have the resources as the bigger kids. How much has it made your job easier, and really honestly made you feel safer and better, knowing that, being able to educate this coach or this player or this parent, how's that impacted your job and what you've done as a team doctor and even a physician in your day-to-day job?
Yeah, right. Even in the emergency room, right? I mean, I see less now of the kind of heat-related illness, certainly, and more awareness around head injuries than you saw when I first started my career. I started in '99, so this is my 25th year to practice emergency medicine in Arkansas, and you definitely have seen a change, because I think, again, parents, coaches, even Little League coaches, are a lot more in tune, and there's a lot more emphasis on training the Little League coaches and getting them sort of aware too of what the dangers are, because it's insanity to take a bunch of third graders out when it's 100-something degrees when the high school kids aren't playing. And exactly. I think parents know and understand that, and I think the expectations have changed around that, and that's a great thing. That's a good thing for our community.
And speaking on that, the education, what are the big, like, if you could just nail down three things, three hot topics or three most important topics, if you were to talk about parents and coaches and players getting ready to go into, they don't do 2-a-days anymore, but going into where you're now going to start padding up next week, what's the biggest message you would say to them to help them prepare, help them really, even after practice, hydration. My wife's a nurse. She hydrate. So what message do you send to those players moving into, where we are getting to the heat of the season?
Yeah, I think you have to start early training, right? You don't want to walk into a football practice or any other sport without having conditioned. So you want to be well conditioned coming into the season, both from a strength and a cardiovascular standpoint. You want to hydrate certainly throughout the practice, but also afterwards. And you want to be honest about how you feel. Playing when you're dehydrated, playing injured can have real consequences. And so, have it, encouraging honest dialogue with your kid, if you're a parent, about how they're doing, creating a culture where it's okay to say, hey, look, my urine's pretty dark today. Maybe I should hydrate up before we hit the field. And then telling the kids too, man, it's hard to tell a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, you're not Superman, you're not invincible. These kids, they want to come in and practice for 2 or 3 hours in the morning, then go lay by the pool and hang out. And then, you need to get inside and rest. It's a significant deal to go out and spend 2 hours in the heat practicing. When you're done, it's time to go home and chill on the couch and relax and know that you got to rest up for the next day.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on again. I'm again really excited to have this, and I'm happy that y'all are able to come on and to talk to us. And we're going to have different providers come on to talk about different illnesses, heat illnesses, injuries, and stuff like that. So again, appreciate your time for coming on and educating our fans and even us about just some of the warning signs and how to prepare for this season.
Guys, it was great to be on. Thank you for having me, and welcome to come back anytime.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was Dr. Lee Johnson of Baptist Health. Again, first segment of our partnership with Baptist Health. Throughout the next coming months, we're going to have multiple providers talking about different illnesses, injuries, and I'm telling you, with medicine, technology, everything coming on at a fast pace, being able to know what to do, where to find the education literature, I know that could help anybody out. And if it helps anybody that, again, these kids don't want to tell doctors or parents or anything like that. So anything we could do to help educate our listeners on the warning signs to look for with their kids, or their if they're a spouse of a coach, anybody that listens to this can now follow us. We're going to have multiple guests on. We'll announce those. But yeah, I'm excited to see how this goes and who we can reach out to.
Mm-hmm. Well, just talking to him, thinking back on it, I mean, how many times when we were going through sports growing up, just looking like, oh, I'm not that hurt. Oh, it's not that bad, and you play through it. But when you're that age, you don't think about these things. It's not our place to think about those things. So we just want to go and play. And I mean, I even remember thinking back to junior high football at Darby. And I remember it was either 7th grade or 9th grade, but it was one of the hottest summers in Fort Smith history at that point. And we're out there, 2 weeks before school starts in black helmets, black jerseys, and black pants. And, we've got the water hose that's hooked up to the PVC pipe with holes cut in it. And, it's 10 in the morning and it's already creeping up 100 degrees plus. And yeah, it was hot, but it was just like, well, tough. I mean, that's what it was.
Well, and then, you had 2 days. You'd have an early morning practice, and you go find a creek to swim in or go, and then go back and do it again, 4, 5, 6 o'clock at night. But also to that point, we didn't have year-round training like they do now. Like, we would go to the weight room and you'd sign in and work out, do a little scheduled workout. There wasn't these 7-on-7 camps and team camps and stuff that much. So I get, and I love the fact that they're doing it year-round because they are staying conditioned. But you also have to look at the things that could happen. You could look at the dangers of this. And yeah, you're talking about the trough. I mean, you had a trough, and it was just a lot different. But I'm glad we've come a long way, because we have seen tragedies in our area. We've seen people that have passed from heat illnesses or injuries on the field. So anything we can do to help prevent those or lead to not making it as bad, I'm all for that.
Oh yeah. You got 2 to 3 weeks and high school football's kicking off. And then we got basically 4 weeks, 28 days. We got Razorback football kicking off. So it's coming fast and furious.
Yeah. Speaking of that, yes. Football fall camp started, a couple of days in, that's ramping up. High school, I think the high school rank here at Ozark, they go full path next week. So, it's getting to that time. And like we were talking about with Zach, we had a mild summer, but it's coming back to rear its head again. And that final couple of months of summer is going to be very difficult. So look, I preach this. My wife preaches it more than I do, but I think the importance of hydration is key. And even doing it, a lot of people think they can drink during practice, but the night before is just, if not more important than the day of, because you're fueling your body for what you're about to do the next day. And again, our kids hate Chief asked me, and I don't do a good enough job with the hydration, but even when I worked outside every day, it was, well, how's your hydration? How dark is your urine, kind of thing. So I got annoyed with it, but yet I still done it. So I can only imagine what teenage kids are doing. But that's the biggest piece of advice I can give, is just make sure you're hydrating out there. And even if you're not playing sports, you're working. Make sure you're staying hydrated. Look, you could spend an hour outside and you're already probably losing no telling how much sweat, or how much water you're losing just sweating, standing there.
When a lot of us, we're harping on our kids to do these things. So take your own advice and do it yourself too.
Exactly. And fall camp, got a commitment from the 2026 class. Tyler Butler, my good friend out in South Carolina, has covered him. Said nothing but good things about the kid. I know that kind of raised some eyebrows, being a 2026 quarterback commitment, but kid can absolutely chunk the ball 70 yards. Just tall, lanky. He's going to have to add some muscle. He's tall and lanky, but what we're seeing with commitments and starting to see 3-star, 4 stars. And look, I'll say this: kids, Gaffney High School in South Carolina, that's a very predominant high school in the state. And no knock on Arkansas, but a 3-star in South Carolina could be different than a 3-star in Arkansas. So do not get discouraged when you see a mid-tier 3-star kid from the state of South Carolina, because there's been a lot of high school recruits, a lot of highly regarded recruits. Arkansas just got one from South Carolina last year. So with the development, and he's got a very, very good quarterback coach that works with him privately. So we have the making of having a guy, a prototype Bobby Petrino quarterback. And if he's looking ahead to 2026, exactly what he's wanting to get. Yes, it does raise the eyebrows about the whole Kane Archer deal, but you got to go after the kind of quarterback that you think would work in your system. And it goes back to the basketball discussion. Yes, this kid's one of the greatest talents to ever come out of the state of Arkansas. And he might have his eyes set on somewhere else. I don't know. But a lot of it, we've heard publicly, could be a big deal with the joint scholarship between him and his brother. So we'll see how that plays out. And, Adam, wanted to get your thoughts about it before we head out. But do you think it has to be like there's a lot of pressure because you're having to offer both?
Part of me wants to say yes, but then part of me looks at the bigger picture when it comes to the roster and the scholarships. And we've talked about this on HQ Live, and I look at it like there's a scholarship that can be given if that's what it took to get this player. Whether it was these brothers or another set of brothers or whatever the case may be, there's enough scholarships to go around. And so in that aspect, I don't see the holdup. The thing I would look at, and I've thought about too, because thinking about the 2026 quarterback that from out of South Carolina, there's a long time between now and then. There's a long time before he's got to sign on the dotted line. Now with Kane's brother, it's a little bit different story because he's 2025. But you've got to look at too that slim or that, I don't know if it's slim, I don't know if it's large. That possibility, because there's always a possibility that, say you get his brother the scholarship, he's here, and then say whatever happens between now and 2026, and you still miss out on Kane Archer, or something happens that then Cash decides like, I'm going to go transfer out. There's a lot to still happen between now and before they have to sign on the dotted line, each of them. So, it's kind of, I guess Kane's coming up, or Cash is coming up quicker, but there's a lot now between now and 2026 that can happen either way, good or bad.
I think that age gap, that really adds a lot to it, because one, just playing devil advocate on it, he's going to be getting the scholarship first. And look, we've seen what a locker room, and if he's given the scholarship because they're in hopes of getting his brother, one, what does that do like to the players that, okay, all just to that ragging, like, hey, you're just here because your brother's coming, but and the internal stuff it could do to his mental health, like him not feeling good enough. He feels like I'm just here because my brother's coming here next year. I look at all those aspects and look, we compete and you're playing in a place like Greenwood, success, winning. And to go from all that success to feel like you're only at a place because of who your brother is. I mean, you don't know what that can do. And knowing that you're up there by yourself, it'd be different if they're the same age and you kind of bounce, talk one another, face to face and really be there for each other. I think that has a lot to do with it. But again, I mean, it also has to do with we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They could be offering and they could be, and with the added number of scholarships that you just pointed out, yeah, you could, but I want him to know if they do offer him that they make sure that, hey, we're offering this because we want you to be a Razorback. We want you to be here because I don't want him thinking that it's just a handout or it's well, you're just using me to get my brother, because that's the last thing that you want to do that could derail this whole thing. Because look, daddy gets involved too, and he's saying, hey, look, this you're just treating him like this because you're waiting it could be a mess, and that's where you got to look at the risk of reward kind of deal. And I know there's all the added pressure of it being an in-state kid. We wouldn't even be discussing this if he was from Oklahoma or another state, but this being that generational talent, you have to look at all sides of this and make that best judgment decision. And as much as people don't want to hear, I mean, there's really no wrong answer when it comes to do they offer or do they not? Because again, you're in the SEC. Look, yes, you want it, but you're trying to rebuild a program and be successful now. And if he can get you successful now, then you offer.
And I mean, obviously, the city of Greenwood and Greenwood High School is as competitive as you can probably get when it comes to football in Arkansas, or anywhere for that matter, for all we know. And so, it's one of those things that I don't think Cash, Kane, or their father or parents, whoever, family, I don't think any of them want anything handed to them.
Yeah.
And, that's just the way being brought up in that area, they earn it. And so I think, and that could be conversations that are going on behind the scenes. We don't know, there's a lot, you bring it up like Oklahoma and stuff, we do have potentially the number one player in that 2026 class out of Oklahoma that's going to be announcing this weekend. So, I'm kind of anxious to hear that, even though, yes, we still have a long time till 2026, but it's still good to see these announcements come this early.
Yeah. And we'll have more on Monday's show with football approaching. Just a disclaimer, and we'll announce this more too. When football season, I've got two boys in junior high, so we're going to move our Thursday show to Wednesday, and we're even going to try to possibly do more of a daily thing, even if it's just a 15-minute recap of what's going on with Razorbacks top news of the day. So really starting on football season, moving on, we're going to really push out more content on the day and still do our normal two podcast live shows a week. So be looking forward to that. But yes, our Thursday show when fall season kicks off will be moved to Wednesday to accommodate those the junior high games that I'll be attending. So Adam, you got anything else before we roll out?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of the Hog Talk Podcast, presented to you by our friends over at Vision Exteriors. For all your outdoor exterior needs, from gutters to siding, give Vision Exteriors a call or visit their website to book your appointment today. And that will do it. We, again, brought to you by Believe, Bet Online, Sterling Soap, and we'll catch you on Monday.